For 14 years, that school basement stayed locked, sealed under concrete and silence. But when they finally opened it, it didn't just give them dust and memories. It gave them proof. A file no one logged, a folder with no record, and inside, something that should have been impossible: the teacher, alive, caught on camera, 3 years after her disappearance. Whoever filmed it wanted it to be found. When the janitor pulled that dusty file from the school basement, everyone thought it was just another piece of forgotten paperwork. But inside, there wasn't a report card. There were photos. Photos that shouldn't exist. One of them showed the missing teacher, alive, in a room no one recognized. The date? 3 years after she disappeared. And just like that, the investigation that had gone cold for 14 years suddenly caught fire again. What was in that hidden folder, and who put it there, would shake the entire town and expose a truth buried deeper than anyone imagined. Behind the Crime, Part 2, The File That Shouldn't Exist. The chilling disappearance of Hannah Cole. Welcome to Behind the Crime, where all hidden cases, forgotten cases, cases that are unsolved are brought to light. Stay with me while we dive into part of this story. Dear viewers, thank you for watching the part 1 of this crime story. We will dive into the part 2 of how Hannah Cole disappeared after that evening class. We will emphasize more on the evidence and interview and every little thing that will link to this case. Please do well to like this video, comment and subscribe for more of this content. Let's get deep into this story. The maintenance corridor gave us movement. The storage unit gave us a voice the district forgot to mute. Part 3 gives us something colder and, in the end, more dangerous than rumor. Infrastructure that keeps its own diary, emails, purchasing systems, and building sensors most people don't know exist. On paper, the assistant principal is a man of checkboxes. His statement to internal reviewers is a staircase of compliance. Camera upgrade, executed to spec. Master keys secured during non-business hours. Contractors, escorted as available. Invoices approved upon receipt of satisfactory completion. Then there's the email. It isn't a confession. Real emails almost never are. It's a forward, the most revealing kind of message, because people relax when they're only passing something along. From AP_facilities@district.org to procurement@district.org. IT_systems@district.org. Date: October 12, 2011, 4:11 p.m. Subject: camera refresh, east wing, finalize placement. Body: excerpt, let's deprioritize stair 2 landing for now. Maintenance corridor coverage not critical with night staff present. Reallocate lens to west lot approach. 14 words undo a staircase. Deprioritize stair 2 landing, not critical. Night staff as a substitute for a lens. A trade that only works if everyone acts exactly the way you hope. We push back when field of view shrinks, but the spec rules. If facility says the landing isn't critical, we move the lens. It's not our job to guess the next 14 years. What the email doesn't say matters too. No mention of work orders posted for the late shifts the landing would now rely on. You can call that an oversight, or you can call it a design. Emergency is a magic key in public procurement. It can waive bids, accelerate checks, shorten oversight. It's meant for burst pipes and smoking panels. But any key works on a door it fits often enough. The forensic accountant colored each emergency night work line item for 5 fiscal years. What looked like weather became geometry. Cluster 1, late October to mid-November, 3 years running. Cluster 2, end of March, end of May, quarter closes. Amounts: $1,680 to $3,840, just under thresholds that would trigger additional approvals. Calendar heat map, predictable monthly burn, thresholds hugged. This isn't a hurricane season. It's a habit dressed as urgency. The amounts hug approval limits because the author knows where the tripwires live. There's one more line nobody explained. A $0 change order pushed 2 days before Hannah's disappearance. Administratively meaningless, operationally telling. Change orders reopen scopes. They extend excuses. They let someone be in a building at night without fresh paperwork because the order's already open. Hannah's note, "If anything happens to me, start here," wasn't paranoia. It was policy analysis written in plain teacher. The storage unit's DVR 2009 shouldn't have been there. Legacy devices follow a script as tidy as a bell schedule. Tag, log, wipe, certified scrap. Deviations aren't clerical, they're choices. When we upgrade cameras, the old recorder is boxed with a tag that includes device ID, date pulled, job order, chain signer. That box either goes to e-waste with a manifest or evidence if facilities flags a case. There's no universe where it takes a field trip to a private storage unit without 6 signatures. The manifest for the East Wing upgrade lists 2 recorders scrapped and 1 retained for testing. Serial numbers don't lie. The retained unit's number matches the one pulled from unit H17, but the destination line is blank. Someone wrote a process and stepped over it. If you're generous, you can call that a coordination failure. If you've ever had to answer for a missing device in a chain of custody audit, you call it what it is: removal. Keys are labor's quiet obsession. Their liability on a ring. The custodian's union rep did not need prompting to explain how a proper key audit runs. You reconcile brass to book and book to card. That means who touched metal, who swiped. What doors say they were opened that don't have card readers, because that's brass. You do it monthly. If a master leaves its box at night, 2 names go on paper. If a submaster is minted, the locksmith signs, facility signs, steward signs, the person receiving signs. If your audit is a signature sheet with straight lines and no corrections for 3 years, it's a story, not a record. The East Wing's manual log is weirdly perfect. Parallel columns, no crossouts, no late returns for flu, dentist, sick child. A human log without human mess. Meanwhile, electronic logs show after-hours movements into mechanicals on nights no one signed for, and door closers. We'll get there. Register openings without corresponding card pings. 2 truths, one tidy, one noisy. Only one is real. Hannah flagged it weeks before she vanished. Discrepancies between sign-out and electronic timestamps. The union rep calls that sentence best practice. The district called it feedback under review. Review never arrived. Night did. Even with the DVR's ghost frames, the landing alone can't carry a case. But modern buildings are orchestras. Pull the right stems and the score reappears. HVAC trend logs. The maintenance corridor's exhaust fan upticked at 9:37 p.m. A slight static pressure change like a door opening onto negative air. Fire panel supervisory log. Not an alarm, just a tamper tick at 9 hours 38 minutes and 11 seconds from the mechanical room riser, consistent with a door held slightly ajar longer than usual. Lighting control. A manual override switch in the maintenance corridor was thrown at 9:39 for a 3-minute interval, on in a place that usually sleeps dark after 9. Smart plug, custodial closet, a surge profile spike at 9 hours 40 minutes and 23 seconds. The kind of noise you get when a motor or pump starts downline. Separate, they're shrugs. Together they're a rhythm. Open, linger, light, run. You can't stage these without touching things that log themselves. Whoever thought the landing camera's blind spot was a cloak forgot the building writes diaries a camera doesn't edit. Micro timeline, 9:36 to 9:41 p.m. 9 hours 36 minutes and 2 seconds, stair badge ping, H, Cole. 9 hours 36 minutes and 24 seconds, DVR fragment, raised arm, movement into corridor. 9 hours and 37 minutes, HVAC exhaust uptick, corridor. 9 hours 38 minutes and 11 seconds, fire panel supervisory tick, mech riser door ajar. 9 hours and 39 minutes, corridor light override, 3 minutes. 9 hours 40 minutes and 23 seconds, custodial closet power surge, downline start. 9 hours and 41 minutes, floor machine above powers down. Silence is just the absence of the noises you expected. The building heard different ones. We won't script a confession for you. Those are for movies that don't trust paper. What we will do is sit across from the assistant principal, now former, and let the absence of some words be louder than the presence of others. The upgrade was budget-driven. We had to prioritize exterior approaches. The landing was covered by night presence. Posting work orders is ideal, but sometimes operational tempo. We relied on trusted contractors. Northline had always, well, for the period in question, they had consistent deliverables. He swallows, looks at the table. Keys are a complex issue. The lockbox procedures are sound. We show him the October 12th email. He reads it twice. That was a suggestion in a planning thread. Final spec is the governing doc. The final spec matches the suggestion line for line. We show him the manifest with the blank destination for the retained DVR. QC meant quality control. IT would retain. If it wasn't logged, then someone didn't complete the form. We ask him who had authority to instruct IT to hold a device off manifest. He chooses a sentence with no subject. That should not have occurred. Sometimes the most honest thing an official says is the thing that shouldn't have occurred, even though it did. We bring Frank J. back, not to push him, but to organize the night people keep making abstract. He brings his binder, a model-covered relic stuffed with shift notes. Inside a page, October 27th, East Wing start 9:25, run long, glue in mech, citrus, don't pause, cover the pass AP. You write what they say so you don't get in trouble for not doing what they meant. Cover the pass, that's not my poetry. That's theirs. I asked, what pass? He said, the passage, the service hall. Don't stop till I text. He didn't text. I stop when I always stop. 9:41. Cover the pass. The phrase fits the maintenance corridor like a stencil. We sit with Mrs. Ellison in a reading room that smells like cloth and history. She talks about archive room be like it's a character in a novel that never got a second printing. Every district has 2 libraries. One for the living records, circulating, touched, and one for the books people pretend never existed. The pegboard? I didn't put it there. But I knew enough to look where the wall didn't match the decade. She doesn't cry. Librarians are good at storing emotion where it can be found without making a mess of the stacks. She just says, she wrote it down. That's why she's still here. Evan K. overlays the invoice spikes with the unit rent receipts. When checks clear, Unit H17's rent comes current. When the district slows payment at quarter end, the unit slides past due and is rescued by money orders 3 blocks from the district office, purchased within 30 minutes of the invoices being logged as paid in the system. You can falsify a work order or you can falsify a commute. It's hard to falsify time across 3 systems that don't know they're talking to each other: the district ledger, the storage lease, and a kiosk's camera clock. Time is the one witness no one remembers to intimidate. By now the map reads itself. The landing lost its camera because night presence would substitute, email says so. Presence was converted to noise, floor machine cover ordered at 9:25. Keys migrated beyond logs, doors tell on them, logs don't. Procurement hugged thresholds, emergencies found calendar patterns. The DVR that should have been tagged and bagged took a detour to a unit whose rent rose and fell with the district's check run. Invisible sensors remembered the 9:36 to 9:41 window better than anyone did. A file slept behind a pegboard until students did what adults had not, pulled. The story no longer needs us to guess. It needs us to finish. The building told us what it could. Frames, ticks, a drain that remembered. Part 3 belongs to the ground. It's the story of how a rural lease tied to Northline services became a map for boots and flags, how a careful team decided where to stop digging and where to begin again, how a district tried to fix a blind spot with policy, and how a family measured words after 14 years of silence. The lease was old enough to be boring: 9 pages, boilerplate, a county parcel, a P.O. box that matched Northline's paperwork. In the margin of the photocopy, a case tech wrote 2 words, windbreak. On the satellite image, a stand of trees ran along a fence line like a breath held too long. It wasn't the most obvious place to search. It was the first honest one. You don't start with X marks the spot. You start with where a vehicle can stop out of sight and a person can move without being seen from the county road. That windbreak gave you 3 minutes of privacy either side. That's an eternity for bad decisions. The team arrived before dawn. No sirens. No lights. Flags in a roll, orange, blue, pink, for grid corners and anomalies. A K9 unit sat quiet until asked to be loud. Grid A, pasture, disturbed last season for fence posts. Grid B, the windbreak, old spoil piles, a depression near a rusted gate. Grid C, the far corner, tin half buried, a barrel with ash. They started on B. You let the dog teach you the day. If he sniffs high, you widen. If he rifles the ground, you narrow. He rifled. At 7:43 the first dog sat, leaned, breathed like certainty. At 7:49 the second dog did the same 2 meters off. The shovel team didn't cheer. They changed gloves. Searches aren't mysteries solved by hunch. They're arguments with dirt, scent, soil, slope, human psychology. Trowel layer, leaf mold, root mat, compacted loam. Probe, resistance at 20 to 25 centimeters, non-stone, non-root. Sifter, 1/4 inch mesh, fragments and fibers, a zipper tooth, a button. You call possible before you call probable. The ground was consistent with secondary burial, not backhoe smooth, spade rough. We recovered personal effects clustered, then osteological material consistent with an adult female. You pause. You document. Then you keep going because context is proof spine. They extended the grid by 2 meters. At 9:16 they raised a ring, silver, simple, with where that matched a photograph scanned from a yearbook memorial draft that never ran. By 10:08 they had enough for the phone call nobody learns how to make. By 10:32 they were marking edges not because it was done, but because it was theirs now, chain of custody, bagged, logged, preserved. People think closure is a word you can write on a calendar. It's not. What you get is a different kind of open. But you make the call anyway. That's the job. Rumor talks in color. DNA talks in math. The sample went to the lab with a case priority that didn't need convincing. Mitochondrial profiles mitigate old, partial, compromised. STR gives you differences that hold across years. Lab Director Dr. Owusu. We don't narrate. We compare. The probability of a random, unrelated individual matching this profile is not reasonable. The remains are Hannah Cole. No music. No applause. Just a chain of custody form that finally spelled the name without an asterisk. The family said yes to a small room and no to cameras. The contractor, the man with the badge in the 924 clip, wasn't arrested to make a headline. He was arrested because paper said so, censors agreed, and the ground finished the sentence. The counts built the way this case did: narrow, stacked, sufficient. Murder, statute. Homicide with intent or in commission of felony. Manslaughter, charged in the alternative. Tampering with evidence, removal/alteration of recording device, disposal of remains, cleaning solvents applied. Fraud, theft by deception of public funds via false invoicing. Possession of unauthorized access devices, blank keycards outside inventory. Conspiracy to defraud, to obstruct. The assistant principal, now resigned, faced what paper can attach to a pen. Official misconduct/abuse of public trust, spec change removing coverage, approval of irregular spending. Tampering, failure to retain decommissioned DVR within policy, manifest irregularities. Aiding and abetting, charged in the alternative, contingent on discovery of communications. Prosecutor ADA Blanton. We don't charge grief. We charge acts. The email deprioritizing the stair-to landing isn't murder. It is misconduct. The DVR in a storage unit isn't a metaphor. It's tampering. Layered, the acts tell a story the cameras were supposed to hear and didn't. Bail hearings weren't theater. They were a ledger read out loud. Unit H-17 rents that rose and fell with district check runs. money orders dated within 30 minutes of invoices being cleared, key logs that smiled too neatly. The judge didn't scold. He scheduled. We don't script grief. We ask permission to let it stand. The family sat with a small arrangement the florist called quiet. They wore what people wear when formality feels like armor: dark, neat, hands folded to keep from shaking. Family statement, read by sister. For 14 years we were told to be patient. We were. We were told to be hopeful. We tried. We were told that the absence of evidence meant the absence of harm. It didn't. We thank those who refused to let dust decide the truth. We ask for space to bury our sister and remember her for the way she wrote in margins, not for the way a building forgot to look. They didn't take questions. They took each other's hands and left. That's the only right ending inside a courthouse. Institutions don't heal by apologizing in new fonts. They heal by procedures that bite. The board adopted 4 reforms with teeth and timers. Every decommissioned device gets a tag with serial, date, poll order, destination, 2 signatures. Destination must be pre-filled, blank fields trigger auto-hold in the asset system. Quarterly third-party audit findings posted publicly. No upgrade may reduce coverage without board vote. Interior egress points, stair landings, basement entries, are must cover. Any deprioritization requires a work order posting plan and night staff escort policy attached. Weekly reconciliation between mechanical events and card logs. Masters require 2-person sign-out with time-boxed auto alerts if not returned. Randomized third-party locksmith checks for cylinder tamper evidence. If anyone will be in a building after 8 p.m., a public post lists who, where, why, supervisor, expected noise, phone on duty. 0 post nights must be posted as such to remove ambiguity. Violations trigger a 24-hour lockdown of after-hours privileges. We designed this so that, "I didn't know," is a sentence no one can say with a straight face. Policies read like a buzzer. So they tested them the way you test alarms. Surprise. No notice. A Tuesday, 9:15 p.m. The superintendent authorized a full after-hours drill. Objective: see whether the East Wing landing could ever go blind again. IT kills camera 7's feed for 60 seconds, simulating failure. Facilities attempts a key removal without dual signature, simulating shortcut. Custodial starts floor machine per bad old habit, simulating cover noise. Security monitors for alert propagation. What happened? At T=00:05, camera health pings an instant alert to security, facilities, and superintendent. At T=00:09, redundancy feed from an overlapping lens autofills the landing view, reduced resolution but enough. At T=00:12, the keybox beeps audible and text escalates, master removal without second authorizer. At T=00:15, floor machine start triggers an overlay, after hours noise, posted? Yes/no, it was for drill. At T=00:18, security calls the landing with a live response protocol. Identify, show credential, state work order number. At T=00:30, drill ends. The landing never goes blind. The system writes logs across 5 databases without a human deciding what to remember. Superintendent: we designed this to make clever impossible. People don't get to outsmart a hallway. On the screen the landing looked unremarkable, just concrete and a door. But the tone in the control room after the drill wasn't relief. It was a promise finally kept. The former assistant principal sat for a second interview with internal counsel. We weren't in the room. The transcript reads like a man learning that procedure is a net, not a pillow. He agreed his October 12th email contributed to a specification that reduced coverage. He conceded the retained DVR was not handled according to policy. He denied instructing anyone to move a device to Unit H17. He invoked counsel on questions about invoice thresholds and change orders. Conspiracies don't need cigars and smoke-filled rooms. They need comfort. The comfort of thinking no one looks under certain panels. We are looking. We include it because due process is part of the truth. The contractor's attorney argued no direct evidence of violence on the 936 landing, only presence. He framed Unit H-17 as a catch-all for tools and old junk from multiple jobs. He called the DVR a paperweight the district forgot. He suggested others had keys and opportunity. He did not explain the money orders purchased within 30 minutes of district check clears. He did not explain the serial overlap on the blank keycards. He did not explain why the dogs sat where they sat. Dr. Nevis, anthropologist. Remains don't argue. They place. We go back to room 214. Not to dramatize. To normalize. The clock doesn't run fast anymore. Someone fixed it. There's a new paper star. A teacher, young, tired in the generous way, erases a board and leaves a little chalk because that's what teachers do when they plan to come back. On her desk sits a shoebox of cards. The top one reads thesis. The second reads tone. Margins weight. New teacher, Ms. Reed. We kept the cards because kids still need them. We keep the forms because we still need them. You can teach commas and still know how to file a grievance. That's literacy too. Camera coverage, plus 14 interior egress lenses. No net loss rule in effect. Legacy devices, 100% tag compliance. Random audits posted publicly with redactions. Keys, 2 signature masters with weekly brass-to-book reconciliations. Locksmith tamper checks logged. After-hours posts, 4 p.m. daily, 0 posts published. Phone on duty list responsive names. Procurement, any emergency invoice over $1,000 requires post hoc documentation within 24 hours. Quarterly heat maps reviewed in public session. Culture, a phrase retired, no indication of foul play, until someone has checked the DVR closet. None of it is heroism. All of it is habits that make heroism unnecessary. We don't give last words to buildings or boards in behind the crime. We give them to the people who opened a wall to find the thing adults had learned to walk past. Evan K., CPA former student. I thought we were going to talk about prom. We talked about posting work orders and key audits instead. I wish it were a better story. I'm glad it's not worse. Former student. She wrote, start here. So we did. Archives aren't graves. They're gardens if you water them with attention. Before a jury ever hears a story, the story fights for its shape. This part is that fight. The hours when lawyers try to cut out the parts that make sense of the night at 9:36 p.m., and the judge decides what the jurors will be allowed to remember. We promised you we'd keep you in the room for this, and we will, because this is where the case either becomes a fog or turns into a map. They don't attack the truth head-on. They try to trim it. A defense attorney stands and, with a voice meant for carpeted rooms, asks the court to throw out the storage unit DVR, the same battered box whose frames placed a contractor at 9:24 and Hannah at 9:36. It's tainted, he says. A quality control device the district mishandled before police seized it. If the judge agrees, the landing becomes what it was that night, blind. Next, he points at the building's diaries. The HVAC uptick at 9:37, the fire panel supervisory tick at 9 hours 38 minutes and 11 seconds, the corridor light override at 9:39, the power surge at 9 hours 40 minutes and 23 seconds, and calls them tech hearsay. We'll need a jury of engineers, he smiles. Better to spare them. If the judge agrees, the building stops speaking. He moves to the K9 alerts at the maintenance drain. Dogs can be cute, he says. Solvent confuses smell. If the judge agrees, the drain forgets. He tries to split the story. Try fraud and murder separately, he says. Don't let invoices poison a homicide case. If the judge agrees, we lose motive, access the why. He wants the trial moved, change of venue, because people here already know about the basement file and the drill that proved the landing will never go dark again. And for the assistant principal, he asks the judge to dismiss everything. It's clerical, not criminal, he says of the email that read, deprioritize stair 2 landing, and the decommission manifest with the blank destination line where the DVR slipped into limbo. If he wins, this doesn't become a trial. It becomes a guessing game. A. Blanton doesn't posture. He plods, one policy, one rule, one chain at a time. On the DVR, chain of custody begins at seizure, he reminds the court. From Unit H-17 forward, it's airtight. The mishandling before that isn't a reason to hide it from the jury, it's evidence of tampering, and it belongs in the story, not out. On the building logs, these are records of a regularly conducted activity, he says. Machines, not memories. Our expert won't guess. He'll translate. On the dogs, 2 independent, certified K9s. Body cam shows no cueing. Their alerts aren't a verdict, they're a direction. On splitting the counts, this is one scheme, he says softly. Night work that wasn't. Keys that shouldn't, a landing that didn't watch, a file that did. Severing motive and access from the act would mislead the jury. On moving the trial, voir dire exists for a reason. Curiosity isn't prejudice. On the assistant principal, he holds up the printout of October 12, 2011, the line deprioritize stair 2 landing, not critical, and the manifest where destination is a white, telling blank. Mens rea can be read from repetition, he says. From invoices that hug thresholds, from $0 change orders that keep a door open, from phrases sent to custodians like, cover the pass, which is not a safety term. It is a plan. The judge listens the way Oldwood listens, without moving, taking weight. Trials are made of witnesses, yes, but they are shaped by emails. Discovery brings a flood, and from it the prosecution plucks 12 messages like stones to step on. You already know one of them. It has undone every defense speech since we first read it. Let's deprioritize stair 2 landing for now. Maintenance corridor coverage not critical with night staff present. Reallocate lens to west lot approach. There's another, just as blunt, sent at quarter end. June close. Route E and W as needed. Keep each under threshold for auto approve. If scope expands, we'll CO 0 for timing. Checks. Break it up so no one has to sign it. Open the change order at $0 so the door stays open after hours. You don't write that if you think daylight is your friend. And the third, the one that wrapped around Frank J.'s notebook and squeezed. Tonight run east wing start 9:25, don't pause till ping. Need to cover the pass. Noise is fine. The court reads the phrase and then looks up at the man who sent it. He clears his throat and calls it operational shorthand. Words sometimes confess more than people. The judge calls witnesses, not to decide guilt, but to decide what the jury gets to hear. A former camera tech confirms the final spec matched the deprioritized landing email line for line. If we'd kept that lens, he says, this would be a different day. A building automation specialist explains why doors pull air and air draws graphs, why supervisory doesn't mean alarm, just linger, and how a 939 manual light override speaks without a human voice. The K9 handler plays body cam. The dogs sit when the air stops being empty. No one tells them to. Frank opens his binder and reads the ink he wrote the night Hannah vanished. Cover the pass. Don't pause. Start 9:25. He taps the dot of the 5 like it's a witness. A forensic anthropologist speaks in careful nouns. Secondary burial, spade pattern, personal effects consistent. We don't need a time of death to know who and what, she says. The rulings arrive like doors that either shut or stay open. The DVR stays. The logs stay, with a tutorial so the jury knows what they mean. The K9 alerts stay limited to direction. Severance is denied, one scheme. Venue is denied, voir dire will do its job. The assistant principal's motion to dismiss fails. The emails and manifest make a case to answer. The story for now keeps its bones. With the landing, the logs, and the inbox in, the defense pivots. They try to point at someone else, the custodian with the floor machine. But the electronic reconciliation puts him upstairs, exactly where the scrubber was supposed to be, while the fire panel tick and the light override happen downstairs. They try to call the basement file tampered, but the students and Mrs. Ellison delivered it sealed, on camera, with a chain the court can trace. They asked the judge to punish the state for the district's mishandling by invoking spoliation, as if the DVR's limbo should erase its frames. But the presumption usually falls against the party that hid the thing it now wants to forget. That party is not the state. They polish their client, a rules-following tradesman, and lean hard on the word tragedy as if grief can substitute for doubt. The judge doesn't argue. He schedules. Voir dire is not dramatic. It is careful. The court asks strangers if they can believe a building when a person didn't see, if they can weigh motive without letting it replace proof, if they understand that no frame of the act doesn't mean no act when the frames around it speak. A teacher raises a hand and says quietly, "We always know where the blind spots are. We just hope the right people do too." The defense strikes her. Hope has never been their ally. A former facilities manager smiles without humor and says, "Keeping it under the threshold is the oldest trick in the book." He stays. 12 people swear to listen. The lawyers stipulate to the obvious so the jurors don't have to. Yes, the students found the file. Yes, the DVR serial matches the retained unit. Yes, the rural lease ties back to the vendor's circle. Yes, October 27th was a zero-post night, no after-hours work announced to the public. The judge draws lines. No soap opera motives, no body, no crime nonsense. There are remains, and a reminder that fraud comes in to explain, not inflame. Maya tucks the index card Hannah once wrote into her wallet again. "You're not behind, you're climbing a different staircase." She won't speak in court. But sometimes presence is the loudest testimony. Evan irons his shirt and rehearses the way he'll explain threshold-hugging invoices without sounding like a spreadsheet. Mrs. Ellison places a small note in her purse. Archives aren't graves. She knows she will be asked the same question 3 ways. Librarians are patient. Frank sets an alarm even though he never needed one when he had the night shift. He slides the binder into a bag and sits on the edge of his bed. He is a man who used to be told to run the machine and not pause. Tomorrow he will not pause. Morning. The state stands first. "This is a case about a doorway," ADA Blanton says, voice steady. "The East Wing landing and the choices that removed the camera that watched it, covered the corridor it led to with noise, and paid for nights that never should have existed. The building's own diaries will tell you what happened when Hannah walked through." The defense replies, smooth as glass. "Tragedy is not evidence. You will not see a single frame of violence. You are being asked to convict by implication." He pauses, lets the word hang as if the air could hold it up. 2 promises. Only one of them has a file behind a pegboard, a DVR with a serial number, a drain that remembers, and an email that says, "Cover the pass." What will show you next? Stay. The story is about to let the building talk. Openings are over. Now the state begins its promise, to let records talk where people didn't. They don't lead with tears or headlines. They lead with the map of a school and the places it chose not to look. A technician in a plain suit, former district IT camera project, takes the stand. He doesn't dramatize. He renders. On the screen, a grayscale campus plan. Each active camera is a white dot. The East Wing looks safe, until he taps a key and reveals what the grid looked like before the upgrade. Another dot appears over the stair to landing, the blind spot at the center of everything. He toggles back and forth, with lens/without lens. The courtroom feels the subtraction. IT tech, final placement followed facilities spec. The email that said, "Let's deprioritize stair 2 landing, maintenance corridor coverage not critical with night staff present," made it into the plan line for line. He points to the decommission manifest, 2 recorders marked scrap, 1 marked retained for QC, no destination. A retained device gets tagged and bagged, he says. Blank means no one did what the procedure required. The defense cross-examines carefully. You can't testify anyone meant harm. No, the text says. I can testify a camera was removed and a device was not processed. Those are choices. The jury writes. A calm man with wire rims, building automation consultant, arrives with charts, not opinions. He treats the school like a patient on telemetry. On the monitor, a micro-timeline ribbon appears. 9:36, 9:41 p.m. 9 hours 36 minutes and 2 seconds. Stare badge ping, H, Cole. 9 hours 36 minutes and 24 seconds. DVR fragment, raised arm, 2 silhouettes move out of frame toward corridor. 9 hours and 37 minutes. HVAC exhaust uptick, corridor static pressure change. 9 hours 38 minutes and 11 seconds. Fire panel supervisory tick, mechanical riser door slightly ajar. 9 hours and 39 minutes. Corridor lights manual override, 3-minute on. 9 hours 40 minutes and 23 seconds. Smart plug surge, downline motor / pump start in custodial closet. 9 hours and 41 minutes. Floor machine upstairs powers down, custodial log corroborates. Consultant, these are not guesses. When you open a door into negative pressure, airflow responds. When you override lights, the system stamps time. These systems don't remember favors, they remember events. The defense tries tech hearsay. The judge has already ruled, records of a regularly conducted activity. The consultant stays. The timeline holds. A digital forensics analyst testifies briefly. The storage unit DVR label, DVR 2009, matches the serial tag retained for QC on the manifest. The footage is degraded but frames survive. The screen shows ghostly grayscale. At 9:24, a contractor with a lanyard steps off the stair and turns toward the maintenance corridor. The frame sticks like wet paper and releases. At 9:36, a second silhouette appears, Hannah by height and posture, toed against hip. A raised arm flashes into partial view at the edge. Then both move into the unwatched corridor. The clip stops. No gasp. Just pens moving. The defense asks the analyst to admit it. You don't have the act. I have the approach, the movement, and the timed responses the building recorded, the analyst replies. The act isn't necessary to prove the sequence. Sequence is the state's quiet weapon. The prosecutor introduces email number 3, the one that wrapped around Frank J.'s note. Tonight run east wing start 9:25, don't pause till ping. Need to cover the pass. Noise is fine. On the witness stand, Frank J., custodian Rhett, opens his mottled binder. He reads the line he wrote that night, ink faded at the edges. East wing start 9:25, don't pause, cover the pass AP? Frank, you write what you're told so you can show you did it. I ran the scrubber. I didn't stop. I didn't see the corridor. That wasn't my job. My job was the noise. The defense suggests memory contamination. Frank taps the page. I wrote it then. Noise becomes evidence. A forensic locksmith demonstrates a brass cylinder under a document camera. The enlarged metal fills the courtroom screen, scratches like meteor trails. Locksmith, these microscrapes aren't routine wear. They're trial insertions, someone testing masters that didn't belong to them. Mechanical events log doors opening where no card was used. That means brass moved when paper says it didn't. Hannah's grievance, master key copies unaccounted for, reconcile brass plus card, discrepancies between sign-out and electronic time stamps. Is placed alongside. She was building an audit for someone else to finish. Evan K., CPA, one of Hannah's former students, rolls a heat map of invoices onto the screen. The pattern is a geometry lesson. Clusters in late October/November, March, May. Amounts that hug approval thresholds. $1,680 to $3,840. Descriptions that rotate. Roof patch, duct inspection, fire door alignment. $0 change orders that keep scopes open. He lays the storage unit's rent across the same calendar. When district checks clear, unit H17 comes current. When the district slows, the unit goes past due, and is rescued by money orders purchased within 30 minutes of the district's check run, 3 blocks away. Evan, it's not millions. It's habit. Break it into bites and call them emergency night work. The calendar will keep your secrets, until it doesn't. The defense tries to make him small. You're not a fraud examiner. I'm a CPA, Evan says, and a former student who learned procedures from the woman who disappeared. The numbers talk. I'm just reading. The jury watches math become motive. Mrs. Ellison, retired librarian, holds the basement file with a tenderness that avoids theatrics. She tells the jury about archive room B, about pegboard that didn't match the decade, about documents that go there to die. Mrs. Ellison, we pulled the panel. The rubber band snapped. The tab said, Cole Hanna, internal. We didn't read it. We sealed it and called police. Archives aren't graves. They're gardens if you water them with attention. Chain intact. Motive intact. The file becomes more than paper. It becomes practice done right. Sergeant Mills plays body cam. 2 certified K9s work the maintenance bay. They sit. They lean in. No handler queuing. The court has already limited the alerts to directional value. Still, the jury now has a map for attention. A lab tech testifies that solvent residues at the drain match the bulk lot purchased by the district that same week. Chemistry doesn't tell who, it tells what and when. In a trial built on systems, when is oxygen? Dr. Nevis, forensic anthropologist, is precise enough to calm the room. She explains secondary burial, spade rough soil, personal effects consistent with Hannah. Dr. Owusu from the DNA lab follows with the math. The profile matches. The probability of a random, unrelated individual is not reasonable. Lieutenant Arias, the search commander, fills in the path. Windbreak, flags, grid, stop here/dig there. They did not promise closure. They made a call. The defense asks each of them to admit what they don't know. Time of death, the exact words exchanged at the landing, who held which key in the corridor. They admit it. Then they point back at the map the state has drawn. The school systems knew what human witnesses didn't. The state doesn't call the former assistant principal yet. They read his emails through the mouths of custodians, IT, and accountants, the people who had to live inside his sentences. To prioritize stair 2 landing, not critical. Ian W. under threshold please, will CO 0. Run east wing start 9:25, cover the pass. Each line lands next to a consequence. A dark lens, a broken approval wall, a no-pause night of noise. The judge allows them, not as character but as acts with measurable results. Misconduct doesn't need a monologue. It leaves procedures behind. By late afternoon, the state stacks its last piece. The micro-timeline returns to the screen. The ADA walks it one more time, quiet, relentless. 9 hours 36 minutes and 2 seconds, Hannah's badge. 9 hours 36 minutes and 24 seconds, movement into the maintenance corridor. 9:37, air asks for help, HVAC uptick. 9 hours 38 minutes and 11 seconds, a door lingers, fire panel supervisory. 9:39, someone flips lights. 9 hours 40 minutes and 23 seconds, a motor wakes. 9:41, noise upstairs ends. Eddie Blanton, no single dot is the night. Together, they are the night, and they all point to the same doorway and the same minutes. He sits. The screen fades to the court seal. Next, the defense finally stands to cross and then to present their case. A portrait of a rule-following tradesman, a plea to distrust machines, a suggestion that clerical sloppiness can swallow murder whole. We will show you how each cross-examination tries to fog the sequence, and how the state keeps opening a window. We'll also take you inside one moment you've been waiting for. The former assistant principal, emails on the table, manifest in his lap, answering for deprioritize that landing and cover the pass. Some stories end with confessions. Others end with policies that finally bite. You'll see which this becomes. If following the records made this case clearer, if you handle after-hours approvals, keys, cameras, or legacy devices, help this reach someone who can prevent the next blind landing. Like this episode so the platform surfaces document-driven work. Subscribe to Behind the Crime for more investigations where systems and paper tell the truth. Share this with one colleague who can say no the next time someone says, deprioritize a camera. And if your building has a pegboard that doesn't belong, or invoices that spell emergency like a ritual, send us the tip. We'll bring the light and the paperwork to keep it on. They called it a trial, but what unfolded was a restoration. Not of a person, you can't restore a life, but of the path she left for others to follow. The state had placed the building on the stand. The defense tried to fog the room. Our final chapter is what happened when the air cleared. The defense spent a morning trying to unmake a sequence. They prodded the IT tech. You can't speak to intent. No, he said, only to the removal of a camera and the mishandling of a device. Choices. They pressed the automation consultant. This is inference. This is physics, he replied. Open a door to negative pressure. Air moves and systems log it. They asked Frank if his line, cover the pass, was a trick of memory. He lifted the page with the ink he wrote that night. It's a trick of orders, he said. We wrote them down so we didn't have to argue about what we heard. They tried to turn Evan into just a student. He let the heat map speak. Patterns don't graduate. They suggested the librarian wanted to be a hero. No, said Mrs. Ellison. I wanted the file to be where someone could find it. That's librarianship. They floated an alternate suspect in a uniform that smelled like citrus and floors. But the electronic reconciliation placed the custodian upstairs with the scrubber, while the fire panel tick and light override lived below. They circled the DVR like it was a trap. The serial number wouldn't move. Sometimes a cross-examination doesn't collapse a witness. It outlines a story. This one drew the landing again and again. A doorway no one watched because an email said not to. You waited for this. Everyone did. The former assistant principal sat under a light that didn't blink. The prosecutor placed 3 printouts between them. The October 12th email, deprioritized stair 2 landing, maintenance corridor coverage not critical. The East Wing manifest with the blank destination for the retained recorder, and the note to custodial. Start 9:25, don't pause, cover the pass. He tried to call the deprioritization a planning comment, the manifest an oversight, the phrase shorthand. Then the prosecutor asked one question you could feel under your ribs. He swallowed. Night staff, he said, the way a person says a line they wrote without thinking anyone would read it back to them. The prosecutor let the room hold that. Night staff, he echoed. Not a camera. Not a log. Not a posted order. People who could be told to run a scrubber and not pause. Intent can be shouted or whispered. Here it was formatted as a bulleted list. He did not confess. Most don't. He said the word emergency too often and the word work like it had finally stopped believing him. He blamed administrative confusion, others with keys, misplaced equipment, an argument about access, the wrong night. He never explained the money orders that photobombed the ledger within 30 minutes of district checks clearing. He never explained Unit H-17 paying rent like a calendar. He never explained why 2K9S sat where a drain held its breath. You don't need an admission when the systems have already given you verbs. The jury returned the same way they left. Quiet, eyes forward, a stack of instructions folded like a map. For the contractor, guilty of murder, evidence tampering, fraud, possession of unauthorized access devices, conspiracy. The manslaughter alternative folded into the larger word. When the clerk read murder, The tiled floor didn't crack, the room didn't gasp. The air simply allowed itself to be honest. For the former assistant principal, guilty of official misconduct and evidence tampering, the aiding and abetting count held in abeyance for post-trial motions. His lawyer put a hand on the table and found nothing to hold. Sentencing would come later. Consequences already had. After the verdict, the superintendent did something no press strategy manual suggests. He asked to walk the East Wing landing with the custodians and the union rep. No cameras. No lectern. They stood in the concrete hush where a lens had once watched and then didn't. The dual signature keybox beeped when it should. The redundant lens stayed on when a tech failed the primary feed for 60 seconds. Upstairs, a scrubber started and the system asked aloud, as designed, after-hours noise posted? Yes/no. The answer was on the lobby monitor, 0 post-night. They didn't talk about healing. They checked whether the hallway kept its promises. There was no speech. They came to the doorway too, sister, brother-in-law, a father who stood as if the floor were a dock and he was waiting to step back onto something that could carry weight. They didn't ask for explanations. They brought flowers, just a handful, and laid them by the wall where tile meets cinder block. It wasn't a shrine. It was a sentence, finished without a period. We waited. We found you. We remember. Then they rode the elevator up, past room 214, and stopped to see the shoebox of index cards on the new teacher's desk. The top one read thesis. The second read tone. In the margins of the moment, grief had room to stand. The board's reforms, legacy device protocol, no net loss cameras, brass plus card reconciliation, 4 p.m. after hours postings, stopped being announcements and became habits. You could measure it. Legacy devices, 100% tagged third-party audits posted quarterly. Cameras, plus 14 interior lenses, stair landings designated must cover, any reduction requiring a board vote. Keys, masters require 2 signatures, weekly brass to book reconciliation, locksmith tamper checks. After hours, daily public post at 4 p.m., including 0 posts. Violations trigger 24-hour suspension of privileges. Procurement, emergency invoices over $1,000 require same-day documentation and appear on a public heat map, read when they cluster where they shouldn't. You don't end a story like this with a plaque. You end it with a checklist everyone can read. Late afternoon. Room 214. A clock that used to run 3 minutes fast now keeps time. A teacher, tired in the generous way, writes due Friday on the board and leaves a small crescent of chalk because she intends to return to it. A student lingers at the door with a question that has nothing to do with courtrooms or corridors. The teacher waves them in. The building breathes, and this time it doesn't sound like a machine covering another person's noise. It sounds like a place remembering what it's for. We want to leave you where we began, but wiser. The landing. The badge reader. The small green blink. It's nothing. It's everything. It was once the last proof that a teacher existed inside a grid. Now it's a promise that a building can't choose not to watch. In the summary of what this case proved, Hannah Cole vanished between 9:36 to 9:41 p.m. in a basement corridor the district had left unmonitored after an email, deprioritized stair 2 landing, not critical, moved a lens. A basement file, hidden behind pegboard, preserved her grievances, camera coverage, key control, after-hours postings, and copies of emergency night work, invoices that hugged approval thresholds and recurred in quarter-end clusters. A storage unit tied to the vendor circle held DVR 2009, the very recorder the manifest said was retained for QC without a destination. Its degraded frames captured a contractor at 9:24 and Hannah at 9:36 entering the unseen corridor. The school's automation systems, HVAC trends, fire panel supervisory ticks, lighting overrides, power surges, created a micro-timeline that corroborated movement and activity when no camera watched. K9 alerts at a maintenance drain, solvent residues matching district purchases, and a rural property search recovered remains and personal effects. DNA identified Hannah. The contractor was convicted of murder, tampering, fraud, unauthorized access devices, and conspiracy. The former assistant principal was convicted of official misconduct and evidence tampering linked to the camera removal and DVR mishandling. The district enacted lasting reforms: legacy device chain of custody, no net loss camera rules, dual signature key control, public after-hours postings, and procurement heat maps with oversight. If you've ever worked in a place with after-hours access, with remit addresses that point to corrugated doors, with keys that wander farther than sheets say they should, stay. Not because this story is grim, but because it is useful. Hannah's file didn't travel 14 years to be a horror story. Came back to teach. Light is a procedure, not a feeling. Cameras, postings, audits, none of these are decor. They are promises that must be written, timed, and checked. Documentation saves lives, even if it arrives too late to save one. Hannah didn't write prophecies, she wrote instructions. Her grievances became the map that solved her case. Keys are trust-made metal. Treat them like evidence. Reconcile brass and card. 2 signatures for masters. Random tamper checks. If a cylinder tells you it's been visited by a stranger, believe it. Emergency night work is not a mood, it's a loophole. Close it. Require postings, documentation, and post hoc review. If amounts hug thresholds, ask why. Legacy devices are witnesses with power cords. Tag, log, wipe, certify, scrap, or bag as evidence. A single blank destination line can hide a year of truth. Buildings keep diaries. Read them. HVAC, fire panels, lighting, power. Your infrastructure is an honest historian if you let it speak and learn how to listen. Culture is what people do when no one is watching. Make "no one is watching" impossible, and make "I didn't know" a sentence nobody can say with a straight face. Students and librarians change the world quietly. Pull the panel. Save the file. Deliver it sealed. The heroism here was administrative, and it was enough. If you work in a place with after-hours access, with remit addresses that point to storage units, with keys that wander and cameras that got moved, don't wait for a documentary. Make a checklist, then make it policy. Behind the crime. If Hannah's story sharpened your eyes, if you sign after-hours approvals, hold keys, manage cameras, or decide where old devices go, help this reach someone who can stop the next blind landing. Like this final episode so the platform surfaces document-driven cases. Subscribe to Behind the Crime for weekly investigations where records and systems do the talking. Share this with one colleague who can say no the next time someone says, deprioritize a lens. And if your building has a pegboard that doesn't belong, or invoices that spell emergency like a habit, send us the tip. We'll bring the light and the paperwork to keep it on.